Welcome back to the podcast. So you entrepreneurs are talking about you want to be able to sell your business one day. And for those of you guys that aren't entrepreneurs yet, but one of these days you're going to become an entrepreneur, you want to start thinking about, look, an exit strategy, right? Here, why get a business? Why build a business? Why have all of that stuff and not have an exit strategy one day? Look, it's a great way to create income for yourself while you're doing it. But when you want to leave, you want to maximize that income so that you can retire well. So Vince Perri is on the show today. And he's going to show us how to do that. Vince, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Anthony. I really appreciate the time.
You know, people wait too long to start thinking about the exit strategy of their business, and they fail and they end up with nothing and they end up not having a business. So let's talk about what happens there.
Well, I mean, basically, people are just not prepared from the beginning. I always talk about value over revenue, which sounds crazy. When I told you about that before the show, you kind of made a look. You're just like, wait, that doesn't really make any sense. If you focus on value, what you're doing is you're focusing on not just the tangible assets, but the intangible assets of your company. What are those intangible assets? Your employees, your customers, your systems and processes, your social, your branding, and everything that goes along with it. If you're able to make those things better over time, not only will you be increasing the valuation of your company, but obviously it will in turn increase the revenue in your company as well.
But, you know, it's amazing because a lot of us, I'm 57 years old. I've been looking at maybe the next 8 years. I'd like to start to retire. And I've been, I have literally been interviewing anybody I know who's even close to that phase or has crossed over to the dark side. And I'm like, all right, how are you doing it? What are you doing? Are you prepared for it? And it's surprising how many people are not prepared. And, they're mixed bag. I get a mixed bag from folks.
Yeah. The way we do it is I basically sit down with a business owner. My target is really anywhere from 3 to 5 years or more in business. We're looking pretty much over $1 million in revenue, but that doesn't mean that even if you're a startup or even if you have less than $1 million or 500K in gross revenue, you shouldn't start thinking about it. And basically what I do is I'll sit down with a business owner and I've got a laundry list of questions that I go through, and we start with the personal. We start with life after exit. We start with, what do you want to do with your life? And if it's a younger person, well, we just ask them, like, what are some things that you really enjoy doing that if the business weren't around that you would just love to be doing? Are there any philanthropic, I always messed up that word, philanthropic ventures that you want to get into? Any nonprofits that you want to start? Any places in the world that you want to go live? Well, guess what? You're going to need money in order to do that. So you're going to have a plan for that as well.
Well, it's something that, to sit down and know what I want to do when I grow up. It's not the American way. Most of us entrepreneurs are waking up trying to figure out what we want to do by the end of the day, let alone figure out what I want to do when I get out of here. Right. That's not it takes a disciplined practice to sit down and start to think that through. Right.
Which is the hard part. Right. Because me and my team are talking about it, and we're marketing this thing, and we're putting ads out and stuff like that. And what I tell the team is just like, this is kind of something that people don't know that they need. And it's really up to us, our salespeople, our just overall content, to kind of convince them of its importance and of its need. Because exit planning, you're 40 some odd years old, 30 some odd years old, you're launching a business or you're scaling your company, and you're just looking at, increasing revenue or increasing your net gross or your net profit and doing whatever you can to survive. And a lot of times they don't have time. They think that they don't have time to go ahead and do that and look at it holistically to make sure that they're putting all the right pieces into place to make sure that just over time that they're increasing it. And we do what's called a wealth goal. Well, how much money do you want upon retirement or when you finally do exit? How much is your net worth now? That number in between is called your wealth gap. And that's exactly all that wealth gap is all the money that's in your business. So you need to now, that wealth gap, if your wealth goal is $10 million, which comes out to about $400K a year, and your current net worth is just say $1 million, you've got a $9 million wealth gap where that's where you're going to have to increase the value of your company to about $9 million. Now, what happens is when you get to that number or you get close to that number, then we go to the decide phase and we decide, do you want to keep growing or do you want to sell? You said you only needed $9 million and you're there now. What do you want to do? The good part is if they decide to keep growing, the idea is by the time they even get to that number, they've built such a well-oiled machine that the business basically runs without them, because you already know owner dependency is a big thing that buyers are looking at. So hopefully by then the goal is you've already set up a well-oiled machine that runs without you, and maybe you could just keep growing.
Well, and here, that's the beautiful part of it, right? But there's also a part of it thinking about, look, you get a lot of, at least I do, I get a lot of my value as a man in the work that I'm doing, right? All of a sudden to think that, growing a company, a big part of growing it is very fulfilling, right? And now one day you're going to tell me that I'm going to wake up and I don't have that to do, right? Now there's a big emotional gap, right? Because the doing of it, right, has been a driver, getting up and getting me out of bed, getting me shaved, getting my clothes on, getting to the office, and working with others to grow a business, right? Because that's really what I'm doing. I'm really working with others, helping them help grow our business.
Yeah.
And there's some value to that mentally,
right?
Now you're going to ask me to get up and sit at home with my wife and look at each other like, okay, what do you want to do?
Well, then don't. If that's the case, if your business is you, if it represents you, if it's who you are, right? Which I would probably try to change the mindset a little bit, because your business is not who you are. Obviously you are who you are, and there's things that you want to do in life. And if you've managed to go all in on your business and go all in on your family and go all in on your kids, and you've lost no time or anything like that, then by all means, again, if it's a self-running machine, then keep it going if you like, if it means that much to you. But at the end of the day, you are not your business, and your business does take time from you. And if you have children, or if you have a wife that you want to spend time with, or if you do want to go travel or whatever it is, that's your opportunity to do so. And if you've already hit that wealth goal that you wanted to hit, and maybe that wealth goal changes over time too. That's another thing, is as you continue to grow, you realize, well, you know what, maybe we could do a little bit more, right? Whatever it is,
Oh, come here, Vince, that number that's the funniest thing about it. There was a time where when I started my journey, I thought, look, if I got $10,000 a month, I thought I would be golden. If I could get no debt and $10,000 a month, I would be golden. And then I had all these kids. And I'm like, well, I got college funds and marriages and helping and all that stuff to growing, continuing that family, right there. It really does that number change. And now there's a multiple of that on that number. And I think that's, your life, as you start to grow your business, your life gets bigger, right? Mm-hmm. So don't be shy about knowing that somewhere you're going to change that number you think that you need to grow. To live. Yeah.
That's the whole part of the exit planning, is that it's basically, we're looking at it every 90 days. It's like we call it a 90-day sprint. And every 90 days, those things could change. And you never know. Maybe something happens too. Death, disability, disagreement, whatever. There's the 5 Ds. I can't remember what they are right now, but any one of these things could happen from one day to the next. You want to make sure that you're prepared, that the business is prepared, is transferable if disaster strikes, if worst case scenario strikes, because that's another thing that we don't really think about. We may say we think about it, but we really don't. And we're so involved in our business, and then poof, something drastic could happen, divorce, death, whatever it is. And, you might have to rethink things immediately.
Well, and so that's the thing that's really important to understand, is that now's the time to start working on that, so that you're not in the crisis mode there. By the way, I'm doing the same thing with my retirement plan, right? My all the things I need to lock that money away, right? You want to be doing it now when you're not in crisis, when you're not sick or you're not ill, right? Now's the time to start working on that. And which, by the way, Vince, talk to me about, how do you start to coach that? How do you coach an entrepreneur through this?
Well, like I said, what we start with is what's called a triggering event. I call it a deep dive as well, where basically, if the entrepreneur is interested in discussing this, we sit down and we have I just did one this morning, a 2-hour or so conversation where we go through all of the personal stuff. I need to know what your total net worth is. So I need to know everything that's in your bank accounts, in your savings, in your retirement, in your properties, assets, and everything like that. What kind of liabilities do you have? We get the personal net worth. Okay. Then we do a business valuation as well to figure out exactly what the business is valued at. And then we figure out what your wealth goal is. So I sit down and I say, okay, a lot of times I sit down with the couple, with the married couple, with the kids as well. You need your whole team sort of involved most of the time. And we want to find out, so what is it that you guys want to do when daddy has more than enough time, when the husband has more than enough time to do whatever it is that you guys want? So what kind of money are you going to be looking for? What's your income now? A lot of times, Anthony, people sell their business and they're, say, making $500,000 a year, and they sell their business and they're like, wait a minute, I'm making less now because I don't have enough in retirement to last until I die. So you got to make sure that you prepare. We take 4%. It's called the power of 4. So we take 4% of whatever it is that goal is, and that's what your annual revenue would be. It's just it's like an unwritten rule there. And then we just go through personal, we go through finance, all the finances, and then we take a deep dive on the business where we look at really the intangible capitals of your employees, your customers, your social, and your overall systems and processes to make sure that that business is transferable to someone else as soon as it's sold.
Well, and audience members, by the way, at the end of the podcast, there's going to be a link down at the bottom that you'll be able to do a great self-assessment on this. Vince and his team have put this amazing plan package together, which we're going to give you all to get started. And it'll be our free gift for the podcast for you, or Vince's free gift for you guys. So we'll look forward to having that at the end of the podcast. So let's just start with, let's go step by step, right? And when should I start planning?
You should be building your business so that it could ultimately run without you. You know, the problem is that everybody, especially like in home services, for instance, you just know how to do the thing. You know, you get an idea because you figure out, wow, I made this much money pressure washing somebody's house. Let me start a business. And you're the one-man show or one-woman show, and you're just doing everything in the business. I personally like to use what's called the hiring ladder. So I believe from my experience, the best thing that you need to do is you start with administrative. So if you're doing everything yourself from A to Z, you have to start with hiring somebody for administrative, handle invoicing, handle your email inbox if possible, handle your calendar as well, and just get all the administrative tasks out of the way. The next thing you have to jump into is the customer delivery. So if this is just, again, you're asking for the new startup, right? Yep. Next thing you have to do is for the delivery. So the delivery of that service, the delivery of that product. If you are the owner of the company, you cannot deal with every single customer that comes in. If you get those two out, now you can really focus on the marketing and the sales. Okay, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the networking, you're getting out there, you're meeting people, kissing babies, doing everything that you have to do. Once you generate enough revenue for that, then you hire somebody for the marketing. Hire somebody to automate all your social media posts, calendar them all, make sure you have a nice fresh website, make sure everything's sort of looking good. That really hits the social capital. You got your Google My Business going, and you've got somebody handling that, if not a whole team, so that you could focus as lead gen comes in from that marketing, you could focus on sales. After the marketing, then you want to hire a couple salespeople. Now, if you hit it right on the head with your two salespeople and you've got the marketing bringing in leads and the salespeople closing, and you've got your admin, you've got your customer delivery with the systems and processes behind it, sky's the limit after that. Because now you've got leads coming in and you've got a sales team closing as well, and you just take care of leadership. And then you start implementing people into leadership roles.
So you know, let's go back to this. So we got administrative support that can do all the daily tasks that you need to do every day, right? So whatever that is, your calendar, your emails, your managing invoicing, all of that.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So invoicing. Now, what about scope of work?
What about scope of work?
Get a scope of work so that anybody can do it. So you clearly define scope of work for everybody.
Like roles and responsibilities?
Yep.
Yeah. I like to use Loom.
Okay.
That's like my favorite. So Loom is basically a screen record software that it's online. You could just pay per month. And basically you want to take, even if you're a one-person show, I think first, Anthony, it's very important to understand that everything that we do on a daily basis in our business and in our life, there's a process behind it. I always compare it to like every day when you wake up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you put your clothes on, you do your hair, you go to the gym. Like we do pretty much, there's a process behind everything. So
I'm such a clockwork. I literally come down the stairs, turn on the lights. I go over, make my AG1. I have a cup of coffee. I go to the gym. I literally, if you watch, most of my day is in such a perfect structure. Yeah. That's great. I know where my keys are. I know how my bills get paid. I know how that structure works.
You also think like that too, right? Because we're business owners. We know that everything needs to be repeatable. So if you could incorporate that into the business where, I don't know, how do you send an invoice? That's a process itself. You open up QuickBooks, you go to create an invoice, you type in this, you look back at that, and then you turn that just into a step-by-step process and you just save it away. And then how it is that you service your client. You approach the house, you knock on the door, you're very cordial, you do this, do that, you go to your truck, whatever the process is so that someone else, everything has got to be repeatable so someone else can do it. And if you're a one-person show, now's the best time to really implement those processes so that people are doing it like you do it. Now, when the administrator comes on, when the customer delivery portion comes on, when the marketing, whatever it is that comes in, now I give them ownership of that SOP now and that system and checklist and process, whatever you want to call it. And it's up to them to update it if it needs updated. And we do it on my company, we do it on a quarterly basis. And we've got a whole spreadsheet of every single one of our processes. And every quarter, each of them, whoever owns that SOP has to go in there and has to basically revamp it, because it's an ever growing thing.
Always
SOPs
changing.
are constantly
Always changing.
So yeah, but it's not up to me to do it anymore. Once you start hiring people, it's up to them to actually update it and then have you review it.
Well, it's like going to the gym and diet, right? They're the same exact experiences that I have as a human being, right? There are times where in my life where going to the gym was not a regular behavior, right? It was something that, I would do good for a few months and then I'd fall out. And I'd do it for good 3 months and I'd roll out. The same thing happens with the way I eat, right? Eat good for a few months and then, I went on vacation. I can start eating. And then you're like, let's get back to eating right. And the same thing happens in business, right? The human experience is sometimes, my judgment is it's a lot like a thermostat. I don't know, 70, 75, it gets a little too warm. At, 68, it gets a little too cold. Business gets ramped up. I start ramping up. I'm really good at my SOPs. I get too ramped up. I get too crazy, right? I stop following SOPs. I start doing crisis work. And then what happens is I get more crisis work, right? Things start falling around. And I start to go back. Business slows down because of that, right? Because I get too busy. I can't maintain, or I start thinking, oh my God, I got too much. Maybe we should slow down a little bit. Maybe growth's happening too. And that's really where we start to fall back in those business models. So just about everybody I talk to on the podcast, every time I've ever had a business that falls backwards, right? It's because they stop following those SOPs.
Or you get away from your quarterly goals. I love following the EOS system, right? Like quarterly goals and rocks and all that stuff, making sure that you're staying on track with what needs to be done. You also asked me what's one of the first things that we do. I forgot to mention, we do something that's called de-risking. So
here you go.
One thing that a potential buyer of your business, you already know, the less risk that your business has, whether it's industry related or in-house related, the more valuable your business is, the more valuable it's going to be to a buyer. So we actually start with de-risking. And on the personal side, I ask and I make sure, do you have a retirement portfolio and a retirement plan? Do you have life insurance? Do you have an estate planning attorney to make sure whatever happens to you, where are these things going to go? Are your kids protected? Is your spouse protected? That's the de-risking side on the personal side. And then it depends on the business side what they need to implement to sort of de-risk. A lot of times, every business owner I talk to has no SOPs or systems. To me, you de-risk sort of your business going off the charts, off the rails, if you don't have any systems in place. So that's one of the things. But it also depends on the situation and where they're at. Like I've got one business owner, he's about out. He's ready to die, literally in 2 years. He's in his 80s or so, and he's very sick. And he just needs to make 2 hires. And they're already in-house. He just needs to put them up, and then I'm helping him, making sure that whatever those roles entail, whatever those processes entail, that he brings those person in. That to me right now, normally hiring is not de-risking, but in this case, it is de-risking because we're putting them into place before the worst case scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially you're going through it. Now you're going to start to test it, right? You move them up, start to work on the process. You start to test the process, right? Or how do they do, put a little bit of pressure test on them and make sure that, look, when they step out, when you step back and they're stepping up, right? Is the business running? And by the way, that first shot, for me, as I've grown CDO group, we went from X to Y to, and then Sophia, my wife, took over the company back in 2019. And that first stepping back from the company for me was a killer. It was first of all, all I just worried about everything. Like, okay, they're not going to do as good as I do it. And the truth was, at first, things didn't go perfect. Right. There was a little bit of a lull in there as the rest of the leadership body kind of stepped in. But today, you're talking, 6 years later, the company runs better today than it ever did. She runs it better than I ever did. They just needed to get their feet in there, get going. And the truth was, I had to stop walking into rooms and sucking out all the oxygen, letting them breathe and get the process. And I think that's going to be a big part for you entrepreneurs out there that are going through this, is as you build a leadership team, a leadership body, and you start to step back from that and allow them to really lead and run your company where you're not the one who runs the whole business, there's an adjustment there. That's okay, right? It's okay to do that. And at least for me, it was. And noticing that I had to have a business coach, just like Vince, to come in and help me through that process.
And that's the last rung of the ladder, right? Is the leadership team. Once you at least have those rungs sort of filled out with the people, then you start, picking and choosing who's ripe for leadership to help you with that end of it as well. And then that's, like I said, another just trying to get yourself out of it, because I don't think business owners realize how important it is for us to step back and allow our creative minds to actually create and actually have some space so that you could, tell me if you agree with me or not. Are your best ideas, do they not come during vacation?
Oftentimes, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when I slow down.
Yep.
I once had a boss. I was doing a brand called Chart House. And this guy, Tom Walters, that I worked with. I was young. I went 1,000 miles an hour. I flew in one day. I'd flown all week, and it was like a Thursday. I fly in, and I go to his office. I had a couple of things to do. He had a board meeting that afternoon, and I can walk in his office, and he's reading the paper. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at him going, how could you be reading the paper? And he would look at me and go, that's why I run the company. Mm-hmm. Right?
That's probably where all his ideas come from too.
He goes, I slow down. It gives me the ability to think about the business, mm-hmm. not work in the business. And he goes, one day you'll see that. Yep. And it was one of the best life. And I think about it all the time. Him was sitting on a chair in his office, reading the paper at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, I couldn't even imagine it at the time. Mm-hmm. And today, having that space to be able to think as a leader, where you're not, it went back to me one of the first business books I ever read, which was that 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yep. Right. Where he talks about the guy cutting down a tree. Right. He's just cutting down a tree. He's cutting down a tree. Someone comes walking by and goes, hey, maybe you stop and sharpen your saw and make that easier. It's like, no, I got to cut this tree down. I got to cut this tree down. Right. You're so busy cutting the tree down that to slow down and sharpen that saw will make the job a lot easier. And that's something that isn't often taught, right, when you're in the middle of it.
I don't think it's ever taught.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is these guys start, again, doing the thing, and then all of a sudden they're really good at pressure washing, and they're really good at contracting and repairs and whatever it is that they do. And then it's like, wait a minute, I'm not doing this as much now. There's too much work. I have to hire people, and now I have to actually be a business owner, which is like a whole new occupation altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. So let's talk about, why do you say valuation over revenue, and help, like every business, how do you decide what the value of a business is? When you're starting to price it, where do you start with figuring out pricing?
Yeah, so that's when the brokering comes in, right? I mean, I do it as an exit planner as well, but we do it depending on the size of the company. We either get the seller discretionary earnings, SDE, and we put a multiple on it, or we get the EBITDA. Usually there's a management team in place, usually over 5 million in revenue, maybe a little bit more. Then we'll get the EBITDA, and then we'll multiply that times a multiple. And the multiple is where the exit strategy and the business coaching side really comes in, because, again, the less owner dependency, the more recurring revenue, the more cash flow you got, the bigger multiple you're going to get in your industry. If you're just a regular, normal, run-of-the-mill company, you're lucky if you get a 2x multiple. But just simply by running a tighter ship and having everything in place, you can now get a 4x, which just literally doubled your sale price. And if you implement all of those things, if you're $1 million revenue, 2x, you could sell for 2 million. If you're 4x, you can sell for 4 million. But getting to 4x will probably increase your revenue another $1 million. So you literally just went from $1 million to potentially, 6 or 8 million just by implementing the things that you have to do. And basically what it is, the SDE is pretty simple. Since it's usually a one-person show, like just an owner who owns it, still has maybe leadership and stuff like that. Usually, to simplify it as much as I can, is you get the net profit of the company, and you add back the overall owner distribution and salary. That's basically it. Taxes and interest are included in the add backs as well, and any kind of discretionary earnings. So like if your personal car is on your business, not to say that that's a bad thing, but you would add that back because the new owner's not going to use that. If you're going out to dinner and different things that, you know, how we put all stuff in our business, you could add some of that back, or sometimes I'll just take 50% and I'll add it back because maybe some of it is actually business. And then we take that SDE and then we put the multiple. The EBITDA, you don't necessarily take the actual owner's compensation. You just take the earnings and the net profit and you add back, earnings before taxes, interest, and amortization. I keep forgetting that.
Amortization.
Yeah, amortization. And then you put a multiple on that.
Nice.
Basically, so, it's your net profit. That's why you want to have cash flow.
Well, and that's a big deal because a lot of companies, I mean, especially as a young entrepreneur, a lot of that revenue, a lot of that extra income I spent really growing the business, right? I mean, I would take all that money and I'd reinvest it. I'd hire some more people. I'd take a little bigger shot. So when you're looking at that, I think some of that stuff, you got to get to a place where do you need to get stable to show that, or to be able to tighten up the belt enough to get that cash flow to the bottom line?
No, and on the brokering side of it, when we're preparing a business to actually sell, like we may not do it immediately, because if the year before you're talking to your accountant and you're using that money to save on taxes so that you could spend on more stuff, then that's okay. We might tell you, hey, let's wait one more year, right? And this time I want you to actually show more cash flow. So that could be like a preparation thing. So when you actually do decide, okay, I want to sell now, I want to start preparing for selling. Okay, so now instead of pumping the money back into the company so much, let's actually really show some cash flow into the business, because showing cash flow is king. You know, cash is king. And if you show potential business buyers cash flow, like that's huge. So that's why tax returns are kind of tough to look at, just because, you know, there's strategy behind that as well.
Yeah, so you start with let's go back through the steps. So you get the cash flow. So you're trying to figure out your valuation. Now, another part you said is your customer capital.
So that's to increase these are the intangible. So
got it.
The tangible for the valuation is going to be your net profit. For the SDE, you're going to add back the owner distribution. You're going to add back interest, like on your vehicles and different things like that. You're going to add back taxes that you're paying. You're going to add back any discretionary income or any discretionary expenses that you actually have in your company that may not be fully related to your company. On the intangible side, this is where the multiples come in. Okay.
So before you go to the intangible side, just real quick.
Yeah.
So your EBITDA, are you looking for 3 to 5 years of going back and looking at that?
3 years. We usually do 3 years. The last 3 years.
And you're looking for the trends for that last 3 years?
Yep, pretty much. Exactly.
Okay.
Then your EBITDA could be, let's say, $1 million, right? So that's your net profit plus the taxes plus all those different things. But now is where the multiple comes in. What is the standard multiples in your industry? So you could be construction, home services, whatever it is, home services, construction, usually between like 2 and 5% around there, while software could go up to 10x. But if you want that maximum valuation, like it's going to literally have to be a business in a box. It's got to be like, here you go, you can take it. That's how you're going to get maximum valuation, because you have to think about it from the buyer. Is somebody buying a business, whether it's private equity or not, they don't want to buy a job. They want to buy something that's already running and running well. You implement a couple things here. If it's lacking a little bit of marketing, you know you could put it there. If it's lacking a little bit of operations, you know you could put a little bit there. But you want, if you want to sell for top value, you want to make sure that you've got basically, I call it a business in a box, that somebody could come in and they could just start running it.
Got it. Now, is it customary for a lot of?
I can't remember.
is it customary in a lot of these deals to have the previous owner stay with you through that transition?
So that's what thank you. Perfect. That's what I was going to say. Here's the other thing, right? Most people think of their business, they sell it and they're gone. If you do not make the business in a box, if you do not have good structural capital, customer capital, human capital, social capital, where it's just like, here, take it and run. If you have all those things, then you could just sell it and go. If you don't have those things, you're going to be asked to stay on. Potentially, you're going to be asked to stay on the hook for about 1 year or 2 years to make sure that the business hits whatever goals that it needs to hit. Now, if that's your choice, remember, we planned that from the beginning. If your choice is, yeah, I'm willing to stay on as an employee while we just let it run, there's a lot of people that might want to do that. But if that's not what you want to do, if you just want to sell it and you want to go, you better create a valuable company so that maybe all you have to do is stay on for a few months, help them with the transition, and then you go on your happy way.
Well, I think that's one of the structures I've looked at for us is, look, somewhere in the future, do you sell to your leadership body and do you get paid out over a period of time?
Yep. You can do that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's having someone like you that can go look at different structured ideas. And by the way, that may change also because, things change with them and the leadership people. All of a sudden, people you thought were going to buy it from you now are gone, right? All that stuff comes up in effect.
Yep, absolutely. I believe it's, I forgot what the number is. I think it's like 76% of owners or something like that, would like to sell to someone within their company or within their family. Pretty common.
Easy enough. Luckily my kids, I'm not sure what they want to do, but it's always been one of those ideas. All right, so now you've got all the intangible stuff. Now let's go to tangible stuff, like things. What are those tangible things?
The tangible things. Let's see. Like revenue and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, like consistent customers and contracts with customers.
So I call it the three drivers. The three value drivers are owner dependency, owner dependency, recurring revenue, and cash flow. Let's get into recurring revenue. There's two kinds of recurring revenue. You could have a loyal customer base that comes to you, that comes back to you. You could have a loyal referral base that constantly is referring business to you. You could have a B2B, like a property management company or whatever, that's constantly, referring you, like you're their number one vendor and that's where all the referrals are coming. That's great. But normally that's a handshake agreement. And God forbid, a new owner comes in and those relationships are now over. Will they stay on as a recurring revenue? The end all be all is, I believe that if you really think outside of the box, any business can create some kind of membership and subscription model. That is the key. If you can create, and I always give the example of my AC company, right? Father's Day, literally this year, my AC went out while we had a bunch of people here. And I've been paying $20 a month. And what comes with the $20 a month is I'm a member. And anytime I need a repair or anything like that, I get 10% off. Now, who was the first company I called when my AC went out? Them.
That's right.
Typically, if I didn't have that membership, what would I have done? I've gone on Google, find AC near me, and I would have called them. But because I have a membership, automatically those are the people that I'm going to call. And it's only $20 a month. I don't even think about it.
Right. What comes with that membership?
Just 10% off. And I'm a member, so they say that, I've got special treatment. I don't know if that's true or not, but you do the math, Anthony. $20 a month times 12 months times 100 or 200 or 300 customers, that's guaranteed money every single month directly deposited into your account.
That reoccurring revenue, people don't realize. Give me $100,000 a year in reoccurring revenue as a one hit of $1 million. It's a much different capacity, right? Oh,
if 10% of your gross revenue is recurring, that's not bad. That's pretty good.
It's a really nice model. I'm always looking for that reoccurring. All right, so now you got customer or revenue reoccurring, right?
Yes.
Now what about human capital?
Okay, so that's where your core values come in. That's where your culture comes in. Do the employees really enjoy working at the company? Are they all on the same ship? Another thing, and just, going in the same direction. And another thing that I tell, God, there's nothing worse, Anthony, than selling a company where nobody knows except the owner that he's exiting. It's a disaster. So it's better to start from the beginning and let everybody get on that same ship. We're just like, all right, cool. We're growing this sucker to sell to private equity or whatever it is, and understand the benefits. Let the employees understand the benefits of that it's just going to further their career. It's just going to scale the company even more. It's just that I'm going to take it to here. That's my goal. I'm going to try to get there. We may decide to keep it, or we may decide to sell it, but I promise you, we're going to build this thing so that if we do hand it off to somebody else, you are all going to be taken care of. And if everybody trusts you and everybody's on that ship together, it's so much better to scale a company that way. That's how it's done.
It's an awesome spot to be in. All right, so now we've got customer, we got employees. What do we got next?
Social capital, which is your branding, right? That's your social media, that's your website, that's your Google My Business, and that's how the people in your community actually view your business. Is it a positive outlook? Is it a negative outlook? Are you a reliable company that people can count on? Are you out there, like, do you see those trucks driving around or whatever it is? Anybody coming in to buy a business wants to buy something that's got a good reputation. We sold a business earlier in the year, and strong business model, not too bad, super owner dependent though. However, I think it was like 3,000 5-star Google reviews. Like, this owner unfortunately was a slave to the company, and a young guy too, was probably like in his mid 40s. He was done. He was just gassed. He's like, I'm done. And I'm like, why don't you just hire an operator like to manage everything? He's like, I'm self-aware to know that I'm too much of a control freak, and I know that's not going to last. So I'd rather just sell right now when we're hot. Great company, because he was so good at answering that phone, responding to people. He had one admin, he had one project manager, and he did everything else. And if it wasn't for those 3,000 reviews, man, we sold that company really. I mean, that was a hell of a deal that we had.
That's awesome. Well, Vince, I think that's a gift. And entrepreneurs, I want you guys to get that. Getting a coach like Vince to take you through this process, right? Start early, start often, get a coach. Look, we talk about it all the time here on the Future Factory podcast. Having business coaches to look at your business, your investment, your long-term goals, right? It's time now to start planning on those. Don't wait till it's too late where you're boxed into a corner and you're going to lose valuation and you end up with nothing. You end up, one, losing the company that you built. You spend all that energy building. And then two, you're walking away with nothing for later on for your next phase of life.
Yeah, and I want to be clear too. Like, I know I definitely sound like a coach, and I've been I was a tennis coach for 15 years. I wouldn't consider so much a coach, because I'm more of like, here's your strategy, here's your plan. It's almost like I actually team up with business coaches. I team up with financial advisors. I team up with other accountants, right? And my job is to make sure that you just have it in your mind. You know exactly what you need to do, how to plan this, get yourself a valuation now, get yourself in the right mindset. If you do want my coaching on a monthly basis, what I'll likely do is I'll either take you on, or I could also, like I said, refer somebody, so that when you come back for your quarterly, I do quarterlies, Anthony. That's like my thing where, hey, did you hit everything that you had to do on a per quarter? But to work with you on a weekly basis, I could definitely refer somebody that could really knock that out of the park. And then when it is time to sell, oh man, we've got everything lined up. We broker the deal and we get top dollar for it. It's a beautiful thing. It just works hand in hand.
Vince, if you want to get a hold of you, what's the name of your company and how do they get a hold of you?
Murtha and Murtha, M-U-R-T-H-A. So that's Murtha and Murtha Mergers and Acquisitions. You can go on vinceperri.com. That's just like my personal brand and stuff. And also my YouTube channel is Vince Perri, at Vince Perri Official, where we go all in on everything that I'm talking about now. Everything that I charge for, basically it's all for free on YouTube.
That's awesome, Vince. And folks, we'll have all the links to that down below. Please make sure you go over there and take advantage of this. Look, it's a great spot for you to start to think about it. No matter where you are in the journey, if you're just getting started or you're a seasoned entrepreneur with multiple businesses, now is the time for you to start to think about your exit strategy before you get there, right? Vince, how long does it take?
It's about a 2-hour phone call, and I have it's a good, 30 to 40 to 50 page report. And then I sit with you again after that for about an hour or so, breaking everything down with you.
That's awesome. Well, Vince, I'm so grateful to have you on the show today, and I'll make sure that we put all that contact stuff down below. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me on, Anthony. It was really fun.
Audience, last week we had another amazing week, 6,000 downloads. You blew me away. We had another, it was great. But what's weird about the numbers are a lot of you guys made it to the end of the podcast and you weren't subscribers. If you could take a second and like and subscribe now, it does help us get great guests like Vince to come on the show. Those numbers do matter for us. So if you could take a second and like and subscribe now, I would be so grateful. And as always, thanks for listening.